I came to Colorado Springs. My wife and I came from Tampa, Florida, by way of New York for me and Iowa for her. And we had a friend who'd been living in Colorado Springs for a while and was telling us what a great place, and we checked out the newspaper, and we drove around Manitou, the West Side, Academy, and I'm like, I'm not quite sure. And then we found Poor Richard's, and I knew I could survive here. And I hadn't even met Richard yet, which was the best thing about Poor Richard's. But it told me that there was more culturally going on here than met the eye. And I've known Richard and Patricia for well, pretty much from the beginning when we moved here. He was the mayoral candidate and probably should have won. I'm sorry, I'm going to try to really be not partisan here. My friend Richard Skorman.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you, Warren. I would have won if I wasn't such a liberal. I want everybody in this room to be careful when you talk to me after my talk, because I may go for your wallet, or I may unionize you. So don't get too close. One of my famous speeches in my political career was when I was the chair of the board of the Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments. I gave a very passionate speech about how we, the Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments, should help elder people in the community with Medicare Plan D. That this was something that was very confusing. We had all this space downstairs, and I turned to the staff and I said, we need to take the ball by the horns. It's been my motto. The whole time I've been involved in this community, and a lot of what I've been involved with is trying to reason with social conservatives. Now I know that's something that you're all looking at me puzzled about and wondering why I was trying to do it, but I grew up in a family that were complete, reasonable debater types. My brother was one of the top 10 debaters in the country, and I thought as long as you could just reason with people, they would come over to your side. So the better way to say that expression is you need to take the bull and run with it. And what I'm trying to get at here is a story about my lunch with Will Perkins. But first you need to know that I spent a lot of time over the years trying to reason with people that I thought would understand my point of view. So I had dinner, Patricia and I did, with Jim and Shirley Dobson. He likes to call himself Jim, not James. And we had a nice dinner, very, very cordial, and about a third of the way into it I said, what about the gay issue, Jim? Let me take my wallet out, Jim, and I bet that everything in this wallet, and you can have my credit cards too, and everything in my bank account, that there's people in this country and in this world, many, many of them, who are gay. And no matter what you do, if you do your conversion therapy, if they go to church, if they go to psychologist after psychologist, they're going to be gay. What do? How do they live their lives? Should they live a life without family? Should they be loveless? Should they be separated from everybody else and ostracized? Should they not be able to be with their loved ones when they're dying and be able to guide their last days, their last breaths on earth, to be able to be with them? I said, what should they do? And he said, it's not God's plan. It's not what's said in the Bible. He goes, I agree with you though, Richard. There are people that are going to be gay out there. It's the bisexuals I'm worried about. They can be convinced. They can be tempted. And I did this in front of, I have a good friend who's, by the way, who's an evangelical minister, who is really a dear friend of Patricia and I, and he and his wife and his family. And he invited me and Patricia to give the sermon after the service at the Vineyard Church. 500 people, all going like this, and all being very, very impassioned about their beliefs, and not making fun of it. And I got up in front of them and said, I know you hate abortion, but who in this room can say they haven't thought about or had sex before they were married? They didn't wave their hands like that. I said, who hasn't masturbated? Raise your hand. Nobody. I said, what you really want is sex education and contraception. And you want people to be able to be in good, responsible relationships, don't you? I said the same thing. I got on a radio talk show, a Christian radio talk show. And I got on and we were talking about homosexuality and how difficult it is and how many partners gay people have. And how irresponsible they are, how they can spread sex and disease. Look at the AIDS rate. I said, you're a proponent for gay marriage. That's what you want. You want responsible gay relationships. So this is the context that I had in my political life that I brought to my lunch with Will Perkins. But the real context was, I grew up, as most people did in my generation in the 50s, where the gay issue was never talked about. It was completely hidden. My best friend in grade school was my cousin Larry, who was gay. We went to Hebrew school together. We went to summer camp together. He came over and ate at our house, probably twice a week. We were just best friends, and he would cry every night in the sleepovers. Larry committed suicide, and he hid the fact that he was gay his whole life. My best friend in high school was a kid, my next door neighbor Tim, whose one of his testicles didn't descend. And all the other kids in the high school called him Homer. He wasn't gay, but they made fun of him, and he went through all this torture. People called him Homer. My best friend in college was this guy, Stephen Brunner, who was gay. And we were inseparable. People would say Stephen, they would say Richard. They wouldn't say our names separately. They would say it together. Stephen was disowned by his family. He was shot at by his father. He was beaten up outside the hide and seek down there on Chestnut in Colorado with a baseball club when people were waiting outside when he got out of the bar at night and almost died. His partner in life that he loved more than anybody in the world died in his arms of AIDS. And Stephen died in my arms 6 months later. By the way, with his parents, who he had reconciled with. This was right in 1990, right before Amendment 2. Right when Focus on the Family had moved here, and the El Pomar Foundation gave them money to move here. The largest radio ministry in the world. 26 million listeners in 24 languages. Colorado Springs was always known as a live and let live city. It was a place where actually the military integrated before other places did around the country. This is where the people that were African American that wanted to be in the military would come because they felt safe here. All of a sudden, we were 100 evangelical ministries, focus on the family, and Amendment 2. Will Perkins and Amendment 2. Well, you know how I felt about it. I was so angry. In fact, we were going to have a party in our restaurant to celebrate the loss of Amendment 2, and we all went home crying. We never opened up the champagne, and we just couldn't believe that people did this. And in the process, the Colorado for Family Values had sent out 600,000 flyers with the most disgusting, prejudice-producing, homophobic statistics by this guy, Paul Cameron, who had been disenfranchised, and he had been kicked out of the American Psychological Association, talking about golden showers, fisting, multiple partners, gay incest, went to every voter in Colorado, and Colorado passed this thing. So we stood up at Poor Richards and other people in the community, and we said, this is not who we are. We're a much bigger, better city than this, and everybody should feel welcome here. We got death threats. Actually, we had them a lot in our house until I put Patricia's voice on our voicemail. We had a brick thrown through our window. We had a swastika painted on our bathroom wall. We had boycotts. And that's what spurred this lunch with Will Perkins. Kevin Thibodeau, who is the executive director of Colorado for Family Values, said, if you want to support us, you can boycott businesses like Poor Richards that hire gay people. And they put us on a list. I saw Will Perkins at a press conference about a week later, and I said, Will, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to fire my gay and lesbian employees? Can they work in El Paso County, or should they, go to another county to work? How are they going to live? Richard, I love your restaurant. I eat there all the time. We're not advocating that. So I said, well, come to lunch. Well, I got scared. I thought, oh God, all these people that are my friends and all the anti-Amendment 2 people are going to see me eating lunch with Will Perkins. The enemy, the person that we all hated the most. But I called him and asked him for lunch, and he suggested the antlers. Good. We went there. I was wearing shorts. This is one of the great comebacks that I feel like I've had in my life. He looks at me, he points at my legs, and he says, if I had legs like that, I wouldn't be out in public. And I said, Will, why are you looking at my legs? And we had this cordial lunch. We started out, the same way as with Jim and Shirley Dobson, and we talked about, food and business, and then of course I got up the nerve to say, so, what is this? Why would you want me to fire my gay and lesbian? We don't, Richard. We don't mean gay people any harm. We don't. I said, so then why did you put all these terrible statistics in about gay people in your flyers, and why are you going around telling people that already have prejudices how horrible they are, how they're going to take over your children, how they're involved in incest, how they have 1,000 partners in a year? I said, Will, I can't have 3 orgasms a day. I don't know who can. I was 30 years old at the time. And I said, well, what about deviant heterosexuals? I said, they're all over the place. Look at kiddie porn and incest among heterosexuals. I said, what about topless bars? You don't like public nudity? I don't hear you out crying about Mardi Gras and Carnival. I said, it's, you know, you're taking one group and you're vilifying them. Well, I understand, Richard, but you got to do that to raise money, and sometimes it's just a part of what you have to do, and you have to look at the extremes out there. But I understand what you're saying, and it's not something I'm very comfortable with. Sometimes it's hard to lift yourself above the garbage. That was his exact quote. So I wrote an article about this in Springs Magazine. Sharon Friedman. She would let me do that. I don't think the Gazette would have at the time. And the Independent didn't exist, John. Thank God you came along a little bit later. But I wrote an article about it. By the way, I had lunch with Will and Amy Devine. I forgot to tell you that. I brought Amy with me, and we both engaged in all this conversation. I wrote my article, and I said, Will, you know, said this, and Will said that, and it wasn't as bad as we thought, and I don't know who to believe, and you know, I'm going to call him on it if he comes out with anything that vilifies people again. It's, you know, it's something that I wanted to trust. And well, the next month there was an article in the Springs Magazine that Will Perkins wrote about his lunch with Richard. I misquoted him. I got political. He didn't know that I was going to write an article that his statistics were true. They were proven. And lo and behold, I had sucker punched him. You know, it just wasn't something he was ever expecting from somebody like Richard Skorman. And so the moral of the story is, if you take the ball by the horns, you need to take the bull and run with it.